very good morning to all of you. My name is Afaq Alam. Today I am going to discuss object-oriented programming concepts in Java. So let us first see the outline of this talk, what I am going to discuss. So I will start with what is object-oriented programming, then what is purpose and its uses, then what are the different principles of object-oriented programming. There are different principles. I will go through each principles one by one and how we can implement a real world application using those principles. So I will discuss each principle and explain how this has been implemented in Java. So let's start with object oriented programming. Can any one of you tell what is an object oriented programming? Anyone? Have you heard of that? So an object oriented programming is basically a paradigm which is used to map real world object into programming world. It is a model which is used to develop real world application in programming, through programming. Now a question comes, what is an object? So an object is any real world entity which has some state and some behavior. A statement is had some property, like a student has some property, it has some name, it has an ID number. So these name, ID number, these are the state, and then it has some property like studying, playing, reading. So these are the properties. So each object that we see all around has some state and some property. Then we will talk how this object can be mapped into the programming world. So we can map this object, real world object, into the programming world, into the Java programming world using class. Class is a concept in Java using which we can map real world object into programming world. So, and from that class we can create multiple instances of Java world object which are of similar type. Similar type means class type. Then the another concept is abstraction. Abstraction means showing essential detail and hiding unnecessary detail. Like if you take an example of a mobile, we have an interface. Using that interface we can access all the functionality of the mobile. How that functionality has been implemented, that is hidden to us. So this is the example of abstraction concept. In Java, this abstraction concept is implemented using the abstract class and interface. These are the two ways we can using which we can implement the abstraction concept in Java. Then the third concept is polymorphism. Polymorphism, in simple terms, you can say doing a work in multiple ways. So this concept provides a way of doing a work in multiple ways. Like if you take an example of again mobile, the same mobile we can use for call. We can use the same mobile for SMS, then the same mobile we can use for video calling. So the same thing we can use in multiple ways. So this is a polymorphism. Polymorphism in Java is implemented using two concepts, that is method overloading and method overriding. Then the another concept is inheritance. Inheritance means extending the parent class property in the child class property, parent class property and behavior. So what I have already discussed, what is the property and behavior. So using the inheritance concept, we can inherit the parent class property in child class. So there are two ways we can implement this inheritance concept in Java, that is using extend keyword and using implementing interface. Then the fourth concept, if we take an example of real world example of inheritance, we can see the parent property is inherited to child. So this is an example of inheritance. If you take example of bank is a parent, then a State Bank, ICICI Bank, SDFC Bank, these different banks are child of that bank. So the parent, in parent class we define some property, and in child that property and behavior is already inherited. If you use the inheritance concept. Then the last is encapsulation. Encapsulation is a way in which we can provide security to our data in Java. So we can implement the inheritance concept by making our data private so that the other can't access that, and we can allow the data to be accessed using publicly getter setter method with some validation logic. So that if that validation logic satisfies, then that access to data is permitted. So these are the different concepts in object-oriented programming. Now using those concepts, we can develop a real-world application. If you take example of banking application, in banking application, we have a user class, user object, that is a customer. Then we have different business object. Different business object means the service provider. Service provider is a State Bank, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank. Then the service user is the customer. So using the concept that I have discussed just now, you can develop a real world application by creating a user object, a business object, and a specification, that is a bank. If you take an example of a bank, we have different functions like create account, checking balance, withdraw money, then deposit money. So all these functions we can declare in a bank interface, and then different bank which is implementing this rule needs to be implemented accordingly. So, and then there will be a customer who will be using the functionality of this different bank. So in this way you can design application using object-oriented programming concept. So the concept which I discussed, if I look into the banking application, the different bank is extending the bank interface. So here there is an inheritance concept. Then abstraction is there, like in bank interface we have only declaration, how it is implemented, the implementation is done in different bank, that is written to the end user. End user means customer. So here the abstraction concept come. Then the polymorphism and encapsulation concept come at the subclass or the business object, that is the specification at the implementation level. So as a conclusion, I would conclude that object-oriented programming is a concept, is a paradigm using which we can develop a real-world application in Java. Thank you.